Okay guys, so I'm gonna tie today a fly that I call the Everglades Special. It's not really a fly for the Everglades, it's a fly that can be used in salt water and fresh water, in brackish water. It works great. It's a very easy fly to tie, you'll see. It only takes a couple of minutes to tie it. What I want you to say that fly pretty much catch everything that hit top water plugs. It's not really a plug, it's not really a slider, it's just at the intermediate between the plug and the sliders. And because it has some kind of a unique body, it will bubble all out through the water column, making a lot of vibration, which will attract a lot of predators. That fly, especially depending on the retrieve, will either work underneath the surface or work on top of the surface if you move it slowly. That fly also can be adjusted in terms of buoyancy. You'll see that it's very easy to remove some foam depending on the water you're fishing. You know that if you're fishing salt water, and if the water is very cold, salt water and cold salt water is very dense, therefore your fly will ride pretty high on the surface, and sometimes you'll have to remove some foam. If you're fishing warm fresh water, the density will be much lessened, and therefore you're going to have to use a fly that has a full buoyancy. So all of these make that fly very, very versatile. You can catch pretty much everything from snook, well, everything that hit top water plugs basically. So we can talk about snook, we can catch barracudas, we can catch snook, tarpons, ladyfish, etc., etc. I mean, the list can go on and on. It's a very effective fly and very, very resilient in terms of, I caught about 20 tarpon on one, baby tarpon on one last week. So it's a very good fly, works very well, and if you use the right material, it can last pretty long. So what you need for that fly is especially one special hook. You can use different kind of hooks, and at the beginning I was playing with a Gamakatsu, this one, the B10S, which was good, but unfortunately it's not very, very resistant. I mean, I found that it opened quite easily. I liked it because it had a pretty wide gap, but to the long term it's not really good. So actually Brock, a friend of mine from Puntangle, sent me some hooks, and he said, well, try this, it's interesting. They have a very wide gap, and it's a TM code, so TMC 8089NP. And as you can see, it's a size 6, and it looks nearly the same size as a size 2. Now, if you look at here, the size 2, which I intend to use on bigger tarpon, which I do not intend to boat on a kayak, is very, very, very big. Had great success, especially with baby tarpon and snook. I mean, that thing is like a vice. Once you hook up a fish, it really stays on. From a tarpon, I would say 8 to 10. Very, very, very good hook. So we'll start with that hook here, which is the same hook that you've just seen, the TMC 8089NP for nickel-plated. So it's a saltwater hook. It's normally a hook that's used for bass fishermen, but it can very much use it in salt water. I've used it successfully also on bonefish in a small size, and it's a very, very good. Very good penetration power because of the thin wire, and actually they don't open very easily. I was able to pull from the bank tarpon of about 25 pounds with that hook, and it didn't open. So pretty good hook. The other thing you're gonna need to make that fly very resilient is Kevlar thread. So I like Kevlar thread, especially when I use bugs on the surface, because the predator cannot chew through it very easily. So Kevlar thread, whatever the color, work. The other thing you're gonna need is a rabbit tail. Okay, not too long, and be sure you make the rabbit tail tapered at the end, as you can see here, and flat on the other side. That will make just a very nice taper at the end of the tail. And the other thing you need is just a piece of foam. So just a strip of foam like that you cut. You can cut different width. I like that width, which is about, I would say, half an inch. and you gotta cut it about the same length, so you can slightly taper it to the bottom. Alright, so now I'm gonna move the camera so you can see the vise. For those who are curious about that vise, that's an anvil vise. It's an old vise. I really like it because it's very versatile and it's a rotary vise. Okay, so this is actually a hook that got a lot of tarpon, and they finally chew through the tail, so I just I'm recycling it for another fish. Alright, for another fly. So the way you do it, and I will lock the vise in place, is that you will basically wrap your thread all along the shank. So that will give you actually a good place to get a good grab on the foam. You don't really have to make very tight wraps. So you save on some thread because Kevlar thread is kind of expensive. Alright, next thing is attaching the tail. Okay, so you're attaching the tail like this. And with the good thing with the Kevlar is that you can really put a lot of tension on it. So there you go. Now it's a very common pattern here, so to start a saltwater pattern or a freshwater pattern. Now what I like to do is add more wrap after the tail. It looks like that foul a little bit less, the tail foul a little bit less. If you want, and that's optional, you can also add a piece of Mason hard mono 16 pound or 20 pound, which you'll tie as a loop to prevent that tail from wrapping along the shank, around the shank of your hook. Now you do that, you make that little loop here. So I didn't tie myself, but it's a very fast fly to tie again. You know, very easy to tie, and ties very fast. Okay, so once you're done with that, I forgot to choose the end, but because when you choose the end, he holds better on the shank of the hook. Alright, so that's basically your fly, as you can see. And I'll try to get closer. Alright, so from now, this is where the trick is. You're gonna take this, and basically you're gonna hold it here, and you're gonna make 1, 2, 3, 4 wraps like this. Then you move a little bit forward, and you'll fold it like this. So people who tied, you know, grasshoppers, that's basically how they tie those. You know, it's not a really new way of tying. It's just a, for salt water and to make a slider, it's kind of new. Then you cut it very close to your thread, and you finish it like this. So that's one. And you do a second one. Now, like I said, normally my strip is a little bit tapered, not too much, but a little bit tapered, so you can actually have it tapered to the top of your shank. So you have the largest fold at the back. Here, that's the second one. Alright, now be sure you leave a little bit more so you can actually finish wrapping it. Then you continue. If you have your strip which is not flat, you just cut it again. Now guys, I mean, I'm showing you this, but believe me, that's a killer. I mean, that's really a fly that works really well, especially in the Everglades. For the little tarpon and the snook, and the other day the ladyfish and the Spanish mackerel, but the Spanish mackerel destroyed pretty quickly. You'll really love it, and the snook also love it because it's just sliding, and since you have this folding foam, it makes just the right amount of bubbles that make it very attractive in the water. And again, since it's kind of hydrodynamic, you know, if you retrieve it fast, it goes into the water. Alright, and the last thing is the last one. You know, I used to make that fly using deer hair that you spun, but it's, you know, it was just too much work, and foam is just, you know, naturally buoyant, cheap, and very easy to work with, as you can see. So don't worry if you have too much foam in the end, since foam is very easily smashable. You end up with a very neat head, and that's basically your fly. It's finished, right? You can see. So what you can do, like I said, depending on the condition, you know, that's how you start with. And if you have a pair of scissors, if you don't have any, you just take your tease, and you know, let's say it's too dense, so not too dense, it's floating on its side because the water is, you know, very dense. So you just, you know, cut some and you adjust it so it just slides the correct way. So that's why I really like that fly. Now once you're done, you can also add a weed guard if you need to, because again, it's a surface, a fly that works on the surface, and you want to be sure that it doesn't grab a piece of...
Qu'est-ce que tu fais, Papa?
Yeah, I'm tying a fly, Zach.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay. Alright, so that's it. And then, you know, you can finish it with some super glue or epoxy. You can also epoxy the bottom a little bit so the fly even will be more resilient over time. And that's it. I mean, again, you can add weed guard if you want to. And that's a fly that's finished, and believe me, that's a killer. That's it.
What are you gonna do, Mom?